you hear those horns, you know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. I want to welcome you to another episode, brand spanking new from the kitchen of Toss, Tristain on Sports Show. This is your friendly neighborhood T-Squared. Tristain Thomas here with you. Thank you for joining us. Glad you are here. But I wish I could share a little bit of better news with you. The Packers had their playoff game, duel in the desert, against the Arizona Cardinals, a team that put it on them 38-8 just weeks prior. It didn't turn out the way that we all hoped it would. It turned out the way I predicted, but it did not turn out the way that we hoped it would, with them losing in overtime 26-20. This episode, unfortunately, is an episode that I hoped to be doing a few weeks later after Super Bowl 50, but instead it's after the divisional round playoff loss. This is the Packers season wrap. As I stated before, they lost 26-20. The Packers did to Arizona in overtime, heartbreaking fashion for the second straight season. We all know about the meltdown in Seattle. We don't need to rehash the NFC Championship game of 2014. For the second time, when facing the Cardinals in the playoffs, the Packers come up on the short end of the stick, losing in overtime. And it was a crazy fourth quarter in overtime. I can't sit down and just explain to you some of the things that I saw while watching this game. From a referee not being able to toss the damn coin. Listen, out of all the responsibilities an official has, that has to be the easiest. And you could even get that right. They got nothing right all night long from all the holding calls. The holding call on the touchdown that they gave up to even get the game tied or give the Cardinals the lead to begin with, 17-13 in the fourth quarter. The holding call that should have been called on the Cardinals against the Packers. And there were so many missed calls, such horrible officiating, but yet it equaled out to be a compelling game. But in the end, you did not tackle. You allowed Larry Fitzgerald to go 75 yards down the field to the 5-yard line on the first possession of overtime. Should have been tackled by at least 6 different guys. At least. I'd have to go back and count it. I was seeing red. And I don't mean the Cardinals. I was seeing red from all the rage that I was feeling at. Mike McCarthy said this game would come down to fundamentals, and they did not use the fundamentals on that play. A lot can be said about the calls that Dom Capers was calling on defense after he was having success with man-to-man, deciding to switch up the zone. A lot of that can be said. And we'll get into all that. But the bottom line is you have to go and tackle somebody. And you didn't do it. You allowed them to get down to the 5-yard line. You allowed them to punch it in 2 plays later on a shovel pass to Larry Fitzgerald to end your season. Super Bowl 50 hopes dashed. Gone. Because you did not stick to the fundamentals. You didn't tackle the guy. You had at least 6 opportunities to tackle this guy, and you did not do that. And that's why we're sitting here wrapping up your season as opposed to talking about what you need to do to beat Carolina in the NFC Championship game. About how good of a matchup that could quite possibly be, especially after the game you guys had in the regular season. We can't talk about any of that because that's not happening. What is happening is all of you are going home after a wildly inconsistent season. And really inconsistent on one unit, and that's the unit we're about to get into, and that's the offense. You want to talk about the Packers' struggles this season? They were caused by this unit, and for a lot of different reasons. Now, let's go and break down this offense in 2015 by the numbers. 23 points per game. 23. All right, that ranked 15th in the NFL. 334.6 yards per game. That ranked 23rd in the NFL. 218 passing yards per game. That ranked 26th. 26th with a 2-time MVP pulling the trigger for you. That ranked 26th in the NFL. Your rushing yardage, 115.6. That's good enough for 12th in the NFL. Here's the numbers that you could compare them to. Last season, 2014, the Packers averaged 30.4 points per game. That is first in the NFL compared to 15th this season. 386.1 yards per game. They were 23rd in that this season. That was good enough for 6th last season. 266 passing yards. That was good enough for 8th in the league last season. And 119.8 rushing yards per game. That was good enough for 11th last season in the NFL. Do you see the disparity? Do you see the discrepancies in this? Do you see how far this offense has regressed? Do you see how much they've taken at least 5 steps back? You go from first in NFL in points per game last season to 15th this season. You go from 6th in yards per game last season to 23rd this season. You go from 8th in passing yards per game to 26th. The only consistent unit, believe it or not, and this is something that we here at Toss have said multiple times, this line is a far greater run blocking line than most people give them credit, and the numbers show that. They were 12th last season with 115.6 rushing yards. They were 11th this season with they were 119.8 was good enough for 11th last season. 115.6 per game rushing yards was good enough for 12th. That has been the only consistent part of this offense, and yet you didn't have a running back who was in shape enough to go and run the football. Yes, James Starks ran the ball pretty well, but your factor back has to be Eddie Lacy, and he showed no commitment to himself or to his team by showing up in that kind of shape. And the nagging injuries that came as a result of it, that ankle, the rib, all that is due to him being out of shape. Mike McCarthy made some comments about that. We'll get to that later in Toss. Let's go to Aaron Rodgers' stats. 2014, you're looking at a guy, and this is an MVP season for him, a guy that passed for 4,381 yards, 38 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His pass completion percentage was 65.6, and his passer rating was 112.2. That's 2014. That's the MVP, second MVP award for Aaron Rodgers. That's the guy we've come to know and love. This year, not so much. 3,821 yards passing, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, a pass completion percentage of 60.7, a 92.7 passer rating. You give those numbers to another guy, and he's an MVP. But because it's Aaron Rodgers, because we've known him to cover up the ails of that turnstile of an offensive line, to be able to break containment and make plays down the field, keep plays alive, that guy, be deadly accurate, more accurate than any other quarterback in the NFL. That's the guy we've come to know and love, and that is not the guy that we got. And the crazy thing is, these are still all decent numbers. That pass completion percentage is something that alarms me. You want to be at that 65% completion range that he was at last season. 60.7% pass completions. Now you can see what a difference of 5 points on the pass completion percentage makes in the NFL. It makes a huge difference. We did not get an MVP this season. And you could say it was caused by a multitude of other things. Let's get to this offensive line. This is the glaring number right here. They allowed 46 sacks on Aaron Rodgers this season. That's second in the NFL, only to Blake Bortles. Let me hit you with that again. 46 sacks allowed on Aaron Rodgers this season by this offensive line. That is second to Blake Bortles of the Jacksonville Jaguars. You have issues. This offensive line, yes, they were injured. Yes, they were beat up. How much depth do they really have? We really didn't see that much. How well have some of these guys been playing when they were healthy? Not entirely great, because you allow 46 sacks on the guy. Your MVP quarterback, a guy who needs to be upright to deliver the ball accurately, to be able to make plays. 46 sacks allowed on Aaron Rodgers this season compared to 28 sacks allowed on Aaron Rodgers last season. That was tied for 19th in the league last season. He went on to have an MVP season. This offensive line is a problem. There's maybe one or two guys I would keep on that line, and everybody else is really pretty much just there. Honestly, I think their best years are behind them. And this is coming into the season was one of the best offensive lines I thought that they ever had. And they did not play up to that caliber. Let's keep on with this offense, because we talk offensive line, you got to talk running back because they make the holes for the guy. And again, this is a much better run blocking unit than a pass blocking unit. And you can clearly see that 46 sacks allowed on Aaron Rodgers compared to 28 last season. Let's talk about Eddie Lacy. Let's talk about his 2014, where he ended up with 1,139 yards. Rushing, 9 touchdowns rushing, a 4.6 yards per carry average. That was the year he was coming off of being Offensive Rookie of the Year of the NFL, where he had another 1,000-yard season, really carried these guys and held serve until Aaron Rodgers was able to come back. We all know what happened there. Won the division crown and a playoff spot, final game of the season against the Chicago Bears. Went on to lose in the first round against the Niners at home. But this is a guy who showed that he can be a factor back. He makes plays in the passing game. He makes plays in the running game. He's a punishing runner. The guy was on the cusp of becoming a superstar. And you decide to not take care of your body as an athlete. His 2015 stats, 758 yards, 3 touchdowns rushing, 4.1 yards per carry average. That is not getting it done. You showed up fat and overweight. Ankle injury as a result, rib injury as a result. Credit to him, he toughed it out. But you know what? He got benched. He got benched in that Detroit game for breaking curfew. He was out for a game, that first Detroit Lions game, because he was hurt. You have to show a better commitment to that. You cannot, as an NFL player, show up flabby and unfit to play. And that is exactly what Eddie Lacy did this season. He knows it. McCarthy knows it. The team knows it. Everybody knows it. Everyone saw it. You heard the jokes. That was the slowest 60-yard run in the playoffs I've ever seen. He walked 60 yards. You heard all the jokes. And you know what? He brought it on himself. You as a professional athlete cannot afford to not take care of your body, not show up ready to play and be a factor to earn that paycheck. Help your team win. It's all about championships, and you showed up and not even anywhere close to championship form. It was disgusting. It was disappointing. And quite frankly, it was just disrespectful to every single Packer supporter out there. We deserve better than that. You should go and apologize to the fans for showing up like that, quite honestly. But we know that won't happen. Yeah, he's a good guy. But he didn't take care of himself. He didn't give the best performances to this team or to this fan base. So yeah, he should apologize for that. But you know what? He wasn't the only problem on his offense. Let's talk Randall Cobb. Let's talk about Randall Cobb, who signed a nice contract in the offseason after coming off of career highs last season of 91 catches, 1,287 yards, 12 touchdown receptions, a 14.1 yards per catch average. That was last season when he had his buddy Jordy Nelson on the other side of him, creating all kinds of space for him to go out there and get all types of balls thrown at him. And he made good with that. Let's talk about his 2015, where he only caught 78, 829 yards and 6 touchdowns. With the exception of catches, his production was damn near cut in half. 10.5 yards per catch average. We said it once here on Tulsa. We'll say it again. Randall Cobb is not a number 2. Randall Cobb is best served in the slot. That is where he is the most dangerous. Yes, he had that year last season. Career highs all across the board, and it was with Jordy Nelson's emergence. 90-plus catches, over 1,500 yards. Tied for the league in touchdown catches with 13. That was what Jordy Nelson did. Jordy Nelson also provided room for everyone else to operate. which is something that is lost on a lot of people. But like I said, Jordy Nelson has nothing to do with guys catching the football. He has nothing to do with guys dropping the football. He has nothing to do with guys being able to gain separation from these defenders. You have to be able to win your individual battles, and they did not do that. But make no mistake, Jordy Nelson is out there. You get more room to operate because there's going to be a lot more attention on him. And guys should have feasted off of that. And they did. This season, not so much. This entire offense regressed. Everyone had a career low kind of a year. Everyone. Rodgers, 60.7% completion percentage. Do you know how close to 59% it is? You're going down with some of the worst passes in the league. Career low. Randall Cobb, career low. Eddie Lacy, career low. This offensive line, career low. This entire offense regressed. Some people want to point the finger at Mike McCarthy, handing over play calling after that meltdown last season, which I was not a big proponent of him doing. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction, and is not a knee-jerk reaction kind of guy. His decisions are usually well thought out, and I don't think he thought that one out very well. I quite honestly think he overthought that one. I think it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. We need change. Maybe I need to bring my attention to everywhere else. And as a head coach, you want to be able to do that. But when you are leading the league in scoring, when you have had one of the best offensive squads in all of the NFL and all of your years there, you do not mess up a good thing. And he realized that when he took play calling back from Tom Clements. When he saw this was not working, he took play calling back over. Now, granted, they had some better performances, but they were still wildly inconsistent. Play calling was a little bit better, but the execution was still inconsistent. McCarthy can only coach the players he's given. And you, as a GM and Ted Thompson, decide not to go and garner any kind of real depth, guys that could come in and help you immediately, as opposed to waiting on this draft and develop thing to happen, because you're not going to hit on players every single time. What are you going to do? Quite honestly, what are you going to do? You're going to be stuck in this, mired in this inconsistency. And that's exactly what happened to the Packers. They didn't have health. Offensive line was constantly in flux. Guys were constantly beat up. You had guys missing games left and right. Not able to build any kind of chemistry. And when they were healthy and all together, they were still a turnstile. We know about Jordy Nelson going down early in the season. We know about that. And that did affect the room of operation for other receivers. Because trust me, when Jordy's on the field, attention's on him. Has to be. One of the best receivers in the NFL, one of the great downfield threats in the NFL, and he burned a lot of people, has been in his career. They didn't have health. They didn't have consistency. And sometimes they did not play with any kind of heart. And that is tough for me to say. Because how many times have we had a Packer team that didn't go out and show up and play with any type of heart? We've had Brett Favre as a quarterback here for damn near 20 years. You got Aaron Rodgers, who will gladly go for the jugular. But how many times have we said these guys play with absolutely no real heart sometimes? Because that's exactly what it felt like. Guys just gave up. Not getting any separation, lazy route running. Devontae Adams, prime freaking example. Prime damn example of they're not just guys sometimes not playing with any heart. You talk about a guy who's regressed. That's a guy who regressed. So what do they do? What do they need to do on offense? What should happen on offense? We'll answer that question a little bit later in toss, because I've got my thoughts about that. Trust me. But it wasn't all bad all season. I mean, granted, special teams, Tim Mastay, don't get me started on him. I think we need to be in the market and looking for another punter, because he just simply, for the last 2 seasons, has not had it. But like I said, it wasn't all bad. It was not all bad. We had a saving grace on this squad. That saving grace was the defense. And I cannot believe that we are in a day and age this season where we were waiting on the offense to go and do something. It's always been flip-flop. We were waiting on the defense to go and stop somebody. Offense would go out there and score each and every single time they were out on the field, and hoping the defense wouldn't give up a score. Hoping they wouldn't give up 31 points after they scored 30. That's what it's been for the past few seasons. And now this defense has jumped over this offense. They were the absolute saving grace on this squad. They were the only consistent unit on this squad. I will say it again. They were the only consistent unit on this squad. Now, some people will argue that special teams was right up there. Special teams coverage was a lot better under Ron Zook. Jeff Janis it's made a name on special teams. That's the only reason I see him sticking around come next season. You didn't have the big splashy returns or anything like that, but you had some solid returns. But the thing is, they had their inconsistencies as well. They were a lot better, but they had their inconsistencies as well. Mason Crosby also had a very good season. So special teams was okay, but the only consistent unit on this team was the defense. I dare anybody to argue with me about that. You saw what they had to deal with all season long. Let's break this defense down by number. 2014, this defense was ranked 15th in total defense. They ranked 19th in points per game at 21.8. They were the 10th ranked passing unit at 226.4 yards per game given up. And they were the 23rd rushing defense at 119.9 rushing yards per game given up. Overall, 15th in total defense. Pretty decent, pretty decent year for 2014. Everybody felt that they played a lot better in the second half, especially with Clay Matthews' move to middle linebacker, where he just had that stupendous coming out party at that position for the first time up against I believe it was the Bears, where they just absolutely got dominated at Lambeau. The Packers probably could have hung 100 on them. I would have loved to see that. Don't get me wrong. But he had a huge coming out party in the middle linebacker position, and he's been there ever since. Mike McCarthy says he wants to get him out of that position. That was always the plan. I don't foresee that happening. They need to get some linebackers in there with some speed that can actually cover the pass, and has to be other than Clay Matthews, because right now that's the only guy I can see that is able to cover the pass, has the speed to do it and the athleticism to do it. But he's so built up in the middle, he's so acclimated to the middle, and they put him out wide sometimes, but they have stuck him in the middle, and I think he's going to be stuck there for a while until they could get a guy who can actually cover the pass and who can also rush the passer. Now, you have Julius Peppers, who had a fantastic season. I believe, 10.5 sacks? That's after 7.5 sacks last season with a couple of picks and two of them returned for touchdowns. He's made an impact in his 2 years here. He had another great season this year. Will he be back for that third year on the contract? I certainly hope so. It would not hurt. He's definitely done his part. He's played the one well. He's been able to play the pass very well, and he's gotten after the quarterback. He's done everything you've asked of him. But as far as that plan of putting Clay Matthews back to the outside, unless you can get a guy who has the speed and athleticism to cover the pass, because that's exactly what Arizona took advantage of. They took advantage of guys in the slot, putting them on a linebacker. That's what they did. So you have to have a linebacker there that is able to have the speed and athleticism to be able to cover the pass as well as cover the run. That is what you want your inside linebackers to be able to do. They have to be that versatile. And I don't think we have that answer. Sam Barrington was very good, but he was gone for the season. He's proven to be a guy the past couple of seasons that's proven that he can't exactly stay healthy. Is he that answer? We don't know. We didn't get a full season of him. Jake Ryan, he's a rookie. He could possibly get better, but I believe I saw him in the playoff game against the Cardinals get burned. He's had some flashes. He's had some good games. He could play the run extremely well, but when it comes to the pass, that is an absolute mismatch. So unless you can hit in the draft or you can hit in free agency or something, I don't foresee Clay Matthews going back to the outside. But let's get back to breaking this defense down by the numbers. 2015's defense was 18th overall in total defense. Allowed 20.2 points per game. That's good enough for 12th in the league. Their passing defense improved again 227.6 passing yards allowed per game, about a yard more than last season, but that's good enough for sixth in the NFL. They gave up 119.1 rushing yards per game. That is 21st in the NFL. So your rushing defense continues to suffer, even with B.J. Raji being back. That's something that is of concern. And Raji is a free agent. You sign him to a 1-year deal. That 1 year is over. I don't think he's going to break the bank, but will he be back in Green Bay? I believe, is he approaching 30? I think he's approaching 30, and it's something with Thompson and the age of 30 that he doesn't like and he feels he needs to turn over. Go and ask Nick Barnett. Go and ask a multitude of guys that they let walk. Tramon Williams. They let a lot of guys walk in their 30s. Hey, thank you for your service. We appreciate what you've done, but we got to move on. So there's something with that number 30 in Ted Thompson's mind where it says, okay, it's time to move on. That's the draft and develop strategy, I guess. You get to 30, we got to move on. I don't know. Nobody really knows what Ted Thompson thinks. At least none of us on the outside of the organization. We can speculate. We could go by what we've seen of him. But nobody really knows. This was really the only saving grace of this team, was this defense. There's no question about that. None. Nobody can argue that. But there's only so many times that this defense could be put in difficult situations and come out of it clean. And that is what this offense did to this defense time and time and time and time again all season long. They continued to put these guys in the toughest of situations and expect them to hold each and every single time. Turning the football over in the red zone. Turning the football over, period. Having those guys backed up against the wall towards the goal line. For the most part, this defense did what they could. They did a fantastic job cleaning up the messes of the offense. They were the only reason this team was in a lot of games for those fourth quarter flurries. And as I said before, I can't believe this is a day and age where we're waiting on the offense to go and do something. That used to be automatic. It was always flip-flop. The offense was waiting on the defense to go and stop somebody, as opposed to the defense waiting on the offense to go and score on somebody. The fundamentals were a problem in the end. Again, Mike McCarthy said this game is going to come down to the fundamentals, and it did. It came down to a lack of fundamentals by this Packers defense. They did not tackle Larry Fitzgerald. They allowed him to go 75 yards down the field in disgusting fashion. Ran through multiple tacklers. You got guys running up, swiping at him. Larry Fitzgerald's a Hall of Famer. One of the great guys in the NFL. But there is no reason that he should have ran through 6, 7, maybe 8 guys to go to the 5-yard line, setting them up in perfect position to win that game, which they did. It was your lack of fundamentals that cost you a playoff game. It was your lack of fundamentals that cost you a trip to the NFC Championship game, quite possibly a trip to the Super Bowl, and quite possibly a Super Bowl championship. There needs to be more attention to detail. There needs to be fundamentals at each and every single level, each and every single time. I get it. Big plays happen in the NFL. I get that. You're going to give up some big plays. Nobody is immune to the big play, no matter how good your defense is. But you can practice the fundamentals time in and time out. And you did not use the fundamentals in tackling Larry Fitzgerald. And it cost you guys a game. But despite all of that, I still feel that this is a championship caliber defense. To be able to hold your team in games, shut other teams down, to give your offense a chance, that's what you want. You don't want your defense to be a sieve and give up 40 and 50 points knowing that your offense is incapable of even scoring 20, which was pretty much the case this season. There were a lot of games the squad didn't even reach 20 points. So despite all of that, this is still a championship caliber defense, and I think it's only going to get better. You bring back everyone you possibly can, but you have depth at certain positions. This is still a championship caliber defense, and I think they will get better. You got the youngins on the back end there. Hopefully Julius Peppers comes back for that third year. Hopefully they find a linebacker that can rush alongside of Clay Matthews so they can put him back outside. Hopefully they find another linebacker that actually play the run as well as play the pass with their speed and athleticism. Maybe they have those answers on the roster. Maybe they don't. But I still think that this defense is good enough to bring you a championship. It's all a matter of, can this offense get back to being that championship caliber offense that we all know and love? Same personnel went out there with minus Jordy Nelson. Same personnel went out there and was able to put up 30.4 points per game in 2014. There is no reason that they can't come back 2016, be that high-powered offense, but still have a championship caliber defense. This season reminded me of the NFL Films recap on the Green Bay Packers years ago, and I believe the coach was Mike Sherman, where they got off to this great start, had a chance to clinch the division after week 10 or something like that, really early. Got off to a fantastic start, much like the Packers did this season, 6-0. And then they just grew inconsistent and marched backwards. And the name of that recap was called Momentum. And they talked about it. Great start, but they did not finish well. And that's exactly what happened this season. Great start, but they did not finish well. But I will say this. I believe in the playoffs against Washington, against Arizona, a feeling that just watching them and looking at game tape and breaking it down, give credit to Arizona on some of the things that happened to the Packers offensively, because they have a top-notch defense. But there were opportunities there that Rodgers did not cash in on. Players did just drop passes. Whatever the case may be, you shot yourself in the foot a bunch of times, but this Cardinals defense forced you into some tough passes and got after you defensively. But despite that, despite the way it ended, I still feel that this team was really starting to play some of their best football of the season in the playoffs, which is the time you want to do it. And it just hurts to see that all that hard work of trying to get it right, trying to put it together just to give yourself a chance. We saw the exciting fourth quarter. We saw the 61-yard, Hail Mary to Jeff Janis. We saw the real 41-yard Hail Mary to Jeff Janis for a touchdown. We saw that. It was all very exciting. But in between that was a group that was working hard, was trying to put it together offensively, just trying to find their way against a very tough defense, but still in the end showed their inconsistencies. But I still think that if they were to be playing this weekend, NFC Championship game, you would still see a team grinding, scratching, clawing, surviving, trying to win. And that's what you need in the playoffs. So it's always tough to see a team's season cut short right when they're starting to kind of hit that stride and put it all together. But so goes the Packers season. It was very inconsistent. And it ends abruptly. It ends the way that really, this game really showed everything that was wrong all season long. Offensive line play, receivers dropping passes, injuries, guys not running right routes, Rodgers being off on accuracy. It had everything that was wrong with the Green Bay Packers this season in that game. But the season's over. You got to lick your wounds. You got to get ready for next season. Because I truly believe that we will not see a repeat performance next year. I truly believe that. And if you're a true Packer fan, who I will address later on, you'll believe that too. But if you're a front runner, if you're a hater, you're not going to feel that way. But I got some words for y'all. I got some words for y'all later. So the Packer season is over. But we have to ask the question, What now? What do they do now? Where do they go from here? We'll get the coach's thoughts, and we'll also get a lot of my thoughts. Best believe that. That's coming up next on the Packers season wrap on Toss. Facebook.com/TOnSportsShow is the Toss Facebook page. It's the place where you can get every single thing that we do not touch on here during Toss on there. So go to T-On Sports Show. That's Facebook.com/T-On Sports Show. That's T-O-N Sports Show. Welcome back to Toss, the Packers season wrap. This is episode 19 of Toss. Your friend in the neighborhood, T-Squared, Tristan Thomas here. And we have to ask the question, what now? What do we do now? Where do we go from here? Mike McCarthy had his season-ending press conference just a couple of days ago. And he really said some pretty interesting things. Now, the two biggest quotes in that press conference, the ones that are garnering the most attention are, quote, he cannot play at the weight he did this year, and end quote, and he's talking about Eddie Lacy there. We touched on that. And quote, there will be changes, end quote. He said, we'll be fine. We'll change. There will be changes. And as of today, and again, recording this on a Tuesday for a Wednesday premiere, they fired the running backs coach, Sam Gash, and the tight ends coach, Jerry Fontenot. So the changes have begun, and they're really looking at the coaching, which is a good place to look. How well these guys being coached. You can always tell in the way the guys play. Now, some of that is out of those coaches' hands, especially in the case of Eddie Lacy, which McCarthy commented on. He cannot play at the way he did this year. He needs to get it done. He's got a lot of work to do, which is what Mike McCarthy said. He's got a lot of work to do, and he does. I already went off about it. It really fires me up. It makes me angry when you do not show up prepared to work. You are a professional athlete. Why would you not keep your body in the best possible shape in order to go out there and be the best player at your position on that field each and every single game? He cannot play at the weight he did this year. If that doesn't sink into his head, he comes back doing the same thing, expect him to be riding the pine and quite possibly be out of a job, because that is eating yourself out of the league. That is unprofessionalism at its peak. To not show up in shape as an athlete, to think that you can round yourself into shape at training camp is just stupid. Why wouldn't you put that hard work in beforehand? Why would you get a leg up on the competition? Why? That just shows me that there's not a desire to be the absolute best. And maybe there's something more going on. We don't know. None of us know. All we know is what we see. And what we see is a guy who decided not to take care of his body in the offseason, come to training camp out of shape, stay out of shape all season long, and got injuries because of it. It's an issue that just fires me up because it's professionalism. Show up in shape as an athlete. Fitness should just be a lifestyle. You should wake up and just, hey, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work out, stay in shape. It should be a lifestyle. But you, as a professional athlete, that is your profession. You make your money with your body and the abilities you're able to pull out of that body. If you are not in tip-top shape, you're not going to be able to go out there and be the best you can possibly be at your position on the field each and every single game, which is where you want to be. That to me shows a lack of determination, a lack of a will to win, no heart whatsoever. It's a slap in the face of every single coach, all of your teammates, and every single Packer supporter out there around the world, because you didn't care enough to show up in shape and be the best you can possibly be. There will be changes. Again, fire the running backs coach already. Fired the tight ends coach already, which are two positions where you did not get a lot out of this season. I would expect a lot more changes to be coming along. Maybe the offensive line coach. Maybe there needs to be a change there. Is Tom Clements coming back? Mike McCarthy said he fully expects Tom Clements to be back. You know, people, a lot of professional pot stirrers out there are going to say, well, since he came in and took the play calling from him, why would he want to come back? Mike McCarthy has already said it's not about taking something from anyone. It was about taking play calling back from Tom. It's about going back to doing something that we did extremely well and had a lot of success with. And tape don't lie. Numbers don't lie. You've had your most potent offenses with Mike McCarthy, who was one of the best play callers in all of football, calling the plays. Why would you want to change that? Mike McCarthy decided to change it up because it was a knee-jerk reaction, plain and simple. I'll go even further. He panicked. He felt that there needed to be such change, and he needed to have his handprints all over this team in every single area, that he caused a ripple effect on this team. Your bread and butter on this team has been offense. Ever since you've gotten here, it's been offense. You've had a couple of good defenses, maybe three now. The past 2 seasons, this defense has been good. In your Super Bowl year, the defense was fantastic. So your bread and butter in your 10 seasons here has been your offense with you calling the plays. Why change that? That had a bigger effect than anybody even realizes. When you're calling the plays and you're with a player for all these years and you won a championship together and you've had nothing but success offensively together, and you decide, you know what, I'm going to bow out and let this guy take care of it. And it fails because a part of it was due to the play calling. Trust me, there's different tendencies with every single play caller. Nobody calls the game exactly the same. I don't care who you are. I don't care what coaching tree you came off of. You don't call the plays the same way this guy calls the plays. You don't have the same tendencies as this guy has tendencies. You just don't. You see things very differently. So you weren't going to get Mike McCarthy with Tom Clements. You're not going to get Tom Clements with Mike McCarthy. They call 2 different games. You got to see both of them this season with both of them calling games. So does Tom Clements come back? I don't know. Maybe he leaves and goes somewhere where he believes he can get a head coaching position, much like Ben McAdoo. Ben McAdoo left. I believe he was the quarterback's coach for the Green Bay Packers at one point in time. Ends up being the offensive coordinator for the Giants, and now he's their head coach. So who knows? Maybe he does come back. Everybody loves to get on the train of fire Dom Capers. Everybody has a problem with Dom Capers. Dom Capers is one of the preeminent defensive minds in this game's history. You are not going to fire Dom Capers. Now, I will tell you this. I had a huge problem with him switching from man-to-man defense, which they had a ton of success against, versus the Cardinals in that playoff game. You went away from that after Carson Palmer completes a couple of perfect passes against you. Again, there is no what does Trent Dilfer say? There is no defense for the perfect pass. He completed perfect passes, tough passes, and he completed them perfectly against you. And you panic and you go to a zone defense, which allowed them to get back into the game. I have a problem with that. I don't know why you would do that. I don't understand why you would do that. Maybe I missed something going back and watching the game tape, but I did not see any reason for you to get out of man-to-man. And let's talk about Sam Shields for a minute. Sam Shields coming back changed that defense. Because now you could take some chances with the guy being back there who's experienced, knows what he's doing, has won a championship. He really transformed that defense. So you definitely saw his worth on this defense. Why would you go away from man-to-man? These running backs, Demarius Randall, Quentin Rollins, Sam Shields, Casey Hayward, those guys can run with just about anybody you throw at them. And they played perfect man-to-man. And you decided to dump that and go to zone defense, which is giving you some trouble. Making that move did nothing but gas up the fire Dom Capers movement. So I have a problem with that. But you cannot pin this loss on Dom Capers. He called a fantastic game. It was not 38-8 like it was last time. The Packers took care of the football. So it was not the 38-8 game that it was the last time. This defense was different. You got Sam Shields back. He makes a difference on this defense. And Dom Capers called a wonderful game. I just don't understand why he went to zone. But he's not going to get fired, people. So stop calling for it. He does not deserve to be fired. He's gotten this defense. Look, he's improved the passing defense, which used to be an absolute sieve. Anybody remember how many passing yards they were giving up? How many yards they were giving up? How many points they were giving up? After they have won the Super Bowl, they were one of the worst defenses ever. He's built upon that. They've given him talent. They spent a lot of these picks in the NFL draft on defense. And you've seen what he can do. I ran down all the stats earlier. Dom Capers is one of the preeminent defensive minds in this game. And everybody who's sitting here saying to fire him is an absolute idiot. I'm sorry. I love you, but you're an idiot. You don't fire a preeminent mind like that. Especially one that has improved this defense. You cannot tell me that this defense has not improved over the last 2 seasons to a championship caliber defense. They were the sole reason why the Packers were in a lot of the games that they were in and were able to actually go and win. You don't fire a guy like that just because you're frustrated and you think that you know everything. You think you should be the owner of the Packers and making Jerry Jones type moves. Stop it. So again, we ask the question, what now? What do they do? Where do they go from here? They need to recognize the shortcomings of this team. That's what they need to do. And it starts with Ted Thompson. Everybody's on the fire Ted Thompson movement. Everybody was actually on the fire Mike McCarthy movement. But let's get back to Ted Thompson before I get to Mike McCarthy. Everybody's on the fire Ted Thompson movement because he doesn't dip into free agency. He doesn't make trades. He doesn't use draft picks to make trades and what have you. He is a true draft and develop GM. Unfortunately, some of these picks that you make to draft and develop don't develop and set that position back and set your team back multiple years. We saw that with the depth and talent at the wide receiver position. You will essentially go and get James Jones off the scrap heap, who came out like gangbusters the first few weeks of this season and then was very inconsistent the rest of it. Randall Cobb is not a number 1. We've seen that. He draws no defensive coverage to him. He doesn't get the double and triple teams. He doesn't get the bracket coverage. He doesn't get any of that. Now, without Jordy Nelson being there, he is better suited in the slot. But they had to have him as a number 1 because of what he did last season. And he has all the talent and ability in the world to be a game breaker. But he fell into the same trap as everyone else. Dropping balls, turning it over, not running proper routes, not gaining separation. Davante Adams, one of those guys that you decided to draft and develop and has regressed. He has not developed whatsoever. If anything, he's developed drop-itis. That's the only thing he's developed. I think everybody's had it up to here with him, but knowing this Packer team, knowing upper management, he'll probably be back next year, folks. I just want you guys to brace yourself for this. Do not be surprised if you see old number 17 on that field in the wide receiver spot getting some playing time. If Ty Montgomery had been healthy, you would not have seen Davante Adams a lot of times. A lot of times. Jeff Janis has not developed the way that you want him to. And everybody's going to point to the game that he had against the Cardinals. And yeah, he had 2 huge catches. But you know what? Before he had that 101 yards receiving in the fourth quarter, he only had 92 receiving yards before that. Or some piddly number like that. He only had what? It was like 42 receiving yards, or 92 receiving yards before that. Some crazy stat that they put out there. It was some piddly number. He got 100 and 101 yards receiving in that fourth quarter, but before that, he wasn't doing a damn thing. He is so inconsistent, but he has proven his worth on special teams. If he makes this squad next season, it will be because of that. Jared Abbrederis, hey, he's got some skills. He's got some talent, but he as well has not developed the way that you wanted him to, or at least at the rate that you wanted him to, and he also has shown himself to be injury prone. You do not have any talent at the wide receiver position of any kind of note. Nothing that's going to draw any type of double coverage to give any other guys any room to operate and make plays. Richard Rodgers, you hope that guy was going to take the next step this season. He did not. Ted Thompson needs to recognize that you need immediate impact players at certain skill positions. You cannot always sit there and wait on the draft and develop guys when you have a huge injury to your number one receiver, who is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and Jordan Nelson down for the season. You can't do that. You as a GM, as a vice president of football operations, cannot sit here and have your finger on the pulse of everything, see everything, know what's going on from top to bottom, and do nothing. But that's essentially what you did. You did nothing. You did nothing. And this team suffered because of that. He needs to go and get talent at the wide receiver position so Randall Cobb can go back in the slot. If Jordan Nelson comes back healthy next season, and I hope that take very, very good care of him, especially in the preseason. Don't play these guys in the games that you don't feel that they need to play. Ease them back into it. He comes back healthy, which we all think he will. You need to have him as your number one. There's a guy out there by the name of Alshon Jeffrey, who's a free agent, that is a tall target, big wide receiver. And what did Mike McCarthy say in his press conference? We need big receivers. We need big targets running across the field to be able to complete passes and make plays in this passing game. That's paraphrasing what he said, but essentially that's what he said. Why not go after a talent like Alshon Jeffrey? You know what he can do. He's done some things against you. There's a guy by the name of Calvin Johnson, Megatron, over in Detroit, who's contemplating retirement. And I don't think he's contemplating retirement because he's had a whole bunch of nagging injuries these past couple of seasons. I think he's sick and damn tired of the losing, of all the inconsistencies in Detroit. And I don't blame him. He's a phenomenal talent. I would be pissed off, too, if my talents were getting wasted in a city, or excuse me, I'm not even going to say a city, on a franchise that does not put proper talent in the proper spots to have any kind of real consistency and be a real true winner. I would be damn frustrated about it too. So if he's contemplating retirement, a la Carson Palmer, like he did with the Bengals, to maybe force a trade, if I were Ted Thompson, I'd be picking up that phone and seeing what's what. Now, I highly doubt they would trade him within the division. But why not make a play for it? Those are two big receivers, big time players that can make an immediate impact on this offense that I've just mentioned right there. It's on a wish list because we know that Ted Thompson's not going to go and do that. If he did, we would all have to be wearing the pants because we would take a dump on ourselves. But he should be listening. He should go and do this because it's going to help your team in ways that you would never imagine. Jordan Nelson on one side, Alshon Jeffrey or Calvin Johnson on the other side, Randall Cobb in the slot. And if you could develop one of these guys, maybe do not put Devontae Adams in that spot. You go and put Ty Montgomery. You put him in that spot. You let him draft. You let him develop. And you see what you guys can do. You can be 4 deep at that spot right there and be dangerous. An in shape Eddie Lacy with a James Starks coming in right behind him. You can get back an accurate Aaron Rodgers. You can get back to being that potent offense. You absolutely can. But it only happens if you realize if you really take a good look in the mirror and realize I need to go and do something different this season. This is a big off season for Ted Thompson. Make no mistake about it. He's going to have to do something because the proof is on the field right in front of your face that you have no real talent at the wide receiver position. None that's going to garner any attention and give any kind of room to operate. You got guys running lazy routes. You got guys dropping passes, turning the football over, not getting any type of separation, just non-threats. And they're loading the box up on you because they know you want to run. You've been a way better run blocking unit on the offensive line. And they stop you because they got 6, 7, 8 guys in the box. And your offense stalls. And that has been the story all season long. This is a big offseason for Ted Thompson. He needs to go and do something extremely different than what he has been doing in years past. Yes, he's dipped into free agency. He's got guys like Ryan Pickett, Pickett fits. We all know how he picked up Charles Woodson, who was an absolute outcast from the Oakland Raiders. People tend to forget that. The guy was a malcontent. Raiders let him walk. Nobody else wanted him. Everybody thought he was finished except the Packers. Ted Thompson saw something in him. He knew he was a former Heisman Trophy winner, and Charles Woodson became Charles Woodson here in Green Bay. Make no mistake about that. It's not like Ted Thompson has Julius Peppers was just the most recent free agent signing off the street. So you know he has dipped in free agency and has had some pretty decent luck, but he needs to do more, whether it be a trade, whether it be signing a guy on offense, a big guy, a big receiver. There are options available. Why not go after it? It's really bad when you hold your breath hoping for a transaction like this. It just seems to make sense. And when you have the proof of it on the field in front of your face, you need to go and do something about that. And if Ted Thompson does not do anything about that, disappointment would not be the word. I think a lot of people would be angry. They'd be bringing the torches to Lambeau Field to put his head on the stick. So this is a big offseason for him. They really need to look at the shortcomings on his team. Eddie Lacy, you guys know, already went in on him. He needs to commit to a good offseason, getting his ass back in shape, finding that heart that he used to have, and coming back and being the Eddie Lacy batterygram that we all know and love. The guy who was on the cusp of becoming a superstar. He needs to commit. Rodgers needs to go back and find his accuracy. Whether he needs to tie a tire to a tree and toss it through there. Whatever you need to do to find that accuracy, that's what you need to do. Because you missing wide open receivers, I'm talking wide open by themselves, is inexcusable. Your completion percentage dropped over 5% this season. That 5% this season equal to you guys scoring a touchdown less per game. That simply cannot happen. This offensive line was an absolute turnstile this season. Didn't matter who was back there. Even the couple of snaps that Scott Tolzien got, he ended up getting sacked. Doesn't matter who was on the center, they was getting sacked because this offensive line was an absolute turnstile. I don't know what you're going to do there. There's some guys that are free agents on that line. I don't know what you're going to do. Do you resign them? Do you have somebody in mind? Are you going to draft and develop more? Are you going to have another inconsistent offensive line next season that's going to cause more of this? I don't know. But this line needs to have a healthy season, and they need to play better. They need to win their battles, and that's a thing that they fail to do on a consistent basis. 48 sacks on your MVP quarterback is not going to get the job done. That's going to hurt your team. And it did. Better wide receivers. The rushing defense needs to get a hell of a lot better. You're giving up too much candy on the ground. And that was a unit that was thought to be a lot better with B.J. Raji coming back with a fully healthy season, and it just did not work that way. That speaks to needing better linebackers back there, beefier defensive linemen in this 3-4. Whatever you need to do, that rushing defense needs to get better. But you know what? Despite all of that, the thing that you take away from this playoff game in these playoffs as a whole, both versus Washington and versus Arizona, is that they were still making do with what they had, and they were still starting to play some of their best football. I know it's hard to say that with this offense and the way that they played on Saturday. But the makings were there. The makings of that 35-point offensive output in the game against Washington, they were there, and they just did not take advantage of those situations. The defense gave them gift after gift after gift after gift on turnovers, and they simply did not take advantage of that. Realize the shortcomings of yourself. Realize the shortcomings of this team. And there will be changes. There will be positive changes. And there will be a lot better offense next season. And I think there'll be more rough and tough defense next season as well. I can't wait for training camp to start. And so can a lot of people out there. But you know what? I got to sit down and I got to talk to all the Packer haters and to all the front runners that claim to be Packers fans and are just spouting off at the mouth with some of the most idiotic crap I've ever heard in my entire life. You want to fire Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, a man who has the second most wins in the NFL to the New England Patriots over the last 6 seasons, and both squads have won 1 championship. You don't fire a guy like that. That is the stupidest thing I have heard, and I have repeatedly heard all season long. You don't fire a guy like that. Dom Capers, a guy who everybody has a problem with for whatever reason, who's gotten this defense to play like a championship caliber defense over the last 2 seasons. One of the best passing defenses in the league. A turnover-laden squad. Plus 14 on turnovers last season. Plus 5 on turnovers this season. They played well with a saving grace of this entire squad to give the Packers a chance to even win the game. And you want to go and fire a guy like that. You want to go and fire Ted Thompson, a guy who believes in draft and develop. And yeah, sometimes he's a little bit too hard-headed and stuck in his ways. I think we can all agree on that. But you don't fire a guy like that who's brought in a lot of talent, who's been diligent in doing his due diligence in free agency, picking the right players for the right scheme at the right time. My comment to all those Packer haters, and you guys can go on the Toss Facebook page and see what I said. Your team ain't spit. Never has been spit, never will be spit. Shows you how miserable you guys' lives are when you take joy in the Packers win. Your whole entire year is waiting for the Packers to lose in the playoffs when your team is out of it by week 3. I feel sorry for y'all. I feel really sorry for y'all because that is what brings you guys joy. Not your own team that you claim to be a supporter of. You ain't hyping your team up. You ain't sitting here talking stuff about your team. You're waiting on the Packers to lose. You're waiting on the Packers to come up short. When your team came up short before the season even started. That's a sad existence to live in. So y'all can continue to live in your sad existence. We here at Toss and Packers fans all over the world will continue to be captivated by the quest for a 14th World Championship. All you front runners that claim to be Packers fans sit here talk about fire the whole entire regime and bring in fresh and new people. Cut this person, cut that person. Do you guys actually sit down and watch the games? I'm going to ask you the question like that Jay-Z asked. Do you guys listen to music or do you just skim through it? Do you guys actually watch the game or do you just skim through it? I think you guys skim through it because if you really did, you would really see what's actually going on in these games. And you will really temper your comments and understand how good you have it right now. And you best enjoy it because we're not always going to have an MVP quarterback under center. We're not always going to have a man in Mike McCarthy that's able to lead men, keep a laser sharp focus, and lead this team to the second most wins in the NFL over the last 6 seasons and have won a championship in that time frame. And all that resume is just about the same as the New England Patriots. You're not always going to have a GM who's going to have the patience to draft and develop instead of trying to go out and win free agency all the damn time. If you're going to make football comments about football things, make sure you know about the real game. make sure you know what it takes to build a team. Make sure you know what it takes to play the game. Make sure you know good and damn well what you're actually talking about instead of trying to hop on a train because everybody else seems to think that same way. Be a leader, not a follower. Be smart, not stupid. You call yourselves Packer fans, but you jump off the bandwagon as soon as there's a little bit of turbulence. As soon as there's a little bit of a struggle, you guys want to hop off and jump on somebody else's bandwagon. And that's perfectly fine. Stay over on that other bandwagon because us Packers fans are going to ride with this team through and through. We can be frustrated, but you know what? We don't jump off that train. To all the real Packer fans out there, I feel you. A lot of you are having a hard time with that loss. And by now, some of the sting has lifted. Some of us, if you're like me, can't even watch SportsCenter because you take that loss personally because you see the potential in this team. You saw how they were playing. You know they could very well have put it all together and gone all the way to y'all say, thank you. Thank you for going on this journey and not jumping off when there's a little bit of a struggle. Thank you for actually sitting down and watching the games and reading the articles and understanding situations and really knowing what football is. It's one or more than just the field is run with personnel as well. For actually being a true football mind, for actually being a true fan and not jumping off because there's a little bit of controversy, because there's a little bit of struggle. Those are the people I enjoy talking with. Those are the people. Whether our differences, we can agree to disagree and everything else, but they know what they're talking about. Those are the people I enjoy. All the rest of you, well, all the rest of you can go and be bandwagon fans on somebody else's squad. We don't need you. But to my true Packer fans, you feel the pain, but you know what? We all know that there's better days ahead for this squad. This offense can be fixed. This defense will continue to improve. We may not be at Super Bowl 50, but we know there's a damn good chance we'll be at Super Bowl 51. This is Toss. All right, y'all, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This has been episode 19 of the Tristain Sports Show Toss, doing the Packers season wrap. I had a lot to get off my chest, but I'm glad that you guys rode with me. Hey, you know my Twitter handle, at the20double on Twitter. That's at the20double on Twitter. You know I keep it entertaining on there. Live tweets of live games, debates, controversy, everything else. I keep it entertaining. I keep it intriguing at the20double on Twitter. You know the Facebook page, facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. That's facebook.com/TOnSportsShow. You know we are on Libsyn. That's TOSSSHOW.LIBSYN.com. TossShow.libsyn.com. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss a minute of Toss. We are also on iTunes and Stitcher. So go ahead, subscribe, leave a comment. Make sure you do not miss a single second of Toss because we're bringing that heat fresh from the kitchen for you. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T-Squared, Tristan Thomas, reminding all of you that dreams don't catch themselves. Get up, get out, and get after it. Until next week, so long from Toss.